Hi, and welcome to another A Song of Ice and Fire video from Westeros.org. We've been asked quite a lot to do this particular video in the last weeks with the occasion of the new chapter that George read at Balticon, right?
Yeah, Balticon in Baltimore.
And we had an idea, well, we knew that this chapter existed since I think about 2011, when George at another occasion gave fans the choice between an Ariane chapter and a new Euron chapter. And the fans at that occasion choose Ariane, and we would have done so as well, I think. But now that we've had summaries and a lot of discussion of this Euron chapter, which is called The Forsaken, I think that would have been the right choice, because while the Ariane chapter was, interesting, this has a lot more fuel for discussion, I would say.
I think the real impression, I guess, is, the Orion chapter, the thing is in the Dance of Dragons, you have the Watcher, which is the Oreo chapter. And that one kind of hints at what Orion's story is going to be in The Winds of Winter, which is it has to do with Aegon and the Golden Company and Griffin. And we had that inkling.
Yeah. I mean, it has insights into her, it has insights into various other, but
the general shape of where her story is going, we knew. Whereas Euron, we knew that we were given one impression in like A Feast for Crows and A Dance of Dragons of what's happening with him. And this one explodes that, and now some people this explodes it. Yeah,
and this is going to be spoilers. We should say this is spoilers for Winds of Winter. There's lots of speculation, so if you've been steering clear of the preview chapters and any discussion, you don't want to watch this video. You probably wouldn't be here because the video is going to be titled something that gives that away. But yes, it's definitely going to be very spoilerish, and we're going to be discussing some fairly big new theories.
Yeah. So, shall we go straight to it then and start discussing this? Yeah. As I said, some people have predicted what's happened here. That we have various reports in A Feast of Crows and Dance of Dragons of what Euron is up to. And I admit I kind of took it at face value myself. I kind of thought, okay, well, that's George's story. When we see Euron again, he'll be on the Iron Isles, and maybe there'll be some stuff with Brown God and the priests and so on.
Trying to, raise the people against Euron because, he's very firm on the idea that, no godless man may sit the sea stone chair. That's that thing that we shouldn't be mentioning, that little show. They seem to have forgotten that bit because Euron is perfectly happy with Kinslayers and that whole thing. But anyway, he's very much not a fan of Euron in particular for being godless.
Yeah, and but as some predicted, Euron knew exactly what Euron was going to do and preempted him by grabbing him. Some people speculate, he murdered him, and that's, so he's actually dead. But then, obviously, when George offered the chapter, it's clear that he's not dead, or unless we're supposed to be seeing that happening. But no, he imprisoned him, and he's held on to him, and he's shifted him from dungeons in the Iron Isles to the Hold of Silence, and then on to...
I guess he was on the Shield Islands.
The Shield Islands for a while, Oaken Shields. And then I think we're finishing up on an isle off the Arbor, and then them sailing off to go to battle. And all this time he's been collecting septons. There's a red priest, apparently.
It turns out he's not all that godless. He's collecting a lot of them, or at least representatives of them.
Yeah, no, he certainly seems to have an interest in having them. Yeah. And most notably warlocks, including one legless warlock who just says pre, complainingly. And now, Euron told Victarion that he had captured these warlocks. One of them had cursed him and said something, and he killed him and then fed him to the others. So there's the question: is the one who's saying pre all the time, is that Pyat Pre, or was he that sort of acting as the leader? Is he the one who attacked and was killed? And this one is basically blaming Pre, and is all that's left in his shattered brain is he hates Pre and his horrible fate he's met. So Euron is there, and occasionally he meets Euron. Euron comes down and chats with him, and
he's a charming fellow, isn't he?
Very charming, and it's a very dark chapter. There's a lot of, I think, what did George say? Apparently, he told people you're
really? He commented.
No, when people shouted out loud for Arian, George said it's really dark. He said, "You're some messed up motherfuckers" or something. for wanting that chapter.
Yeah,
but
well, they didn't realize what they were in for. But
no.
And
the big thing here, I think, is and really the central aspect of this chapter is what happens in these meetings, because Euron, who we saw in A Feast for Crows, his lips were blue from drinking Shade of the Evening, which is the potion the warlocks make, and this potion, as Linda points out.
Yes, we were just. Now, when we were preparing, discussing this, like, where does it come from, and how do they, like, well, obviously they have some magic ways of making it, but what actually goes into it? And we looked this up, and it turns out that it is from a black-barked tree.
With inky blue leaves.
With inky blue leaves, and it's like, is it like sort of the opposite of a weirwood in some way, or something similar to a weirwood, because it seems to be, I mean, it's opening the senses.
Yeah.
If you keep drinking it, your lips turn blue, but we have Dany drinking it before she goes into the House of the Undying, and at that point she's just giving the one flute of it from Pyat Pri.
So her lips won't go blue, but what he tells her is, one flute will serve only to unstop your ears and dissolve the call from off your eyes, so that you may hear and see what truths have we laid before you. And so Euron is drinking this stuff actively, and his lips are dark blue. He's been drinking a lot of it. Yeah. And I think from the summaries, I think it's just that his lips are even darker than they were last time.
He really wants to see some kind of truth. He really wants access to something that the Shade of the Evening gives access to.
I mean, it's and he wants Euron to.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well. Why does he want him to see it?
It's him in particular. I don't think he's indicated that he's giving it to anyone else. Euron that he wants. No,
because the others, I mean, he's muted them. The Septons are mute. He's cut out their tongues, for example. I don't know the priest of R'hllor. He's burned horribly.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that seems to be like kind of testing them against their god, or in the Septons he just doesn't want to hear them preaching. I guess
so.
But with Euron, he wants him to see the truth as he sees it, perhaps.
Yeah.
I think he wants Euron on board in some fashion.
Well, that's we'll discuss that when we get to the vision part. But so it brings visions. It opens your eyes. Now, when Dany goes into the House of the Undying, she doesn't just see prophecy, and she doesn't just see things of the past. She sees things that are not real, that are temptations. Like, for example, when she enters a room with the fabulous mages and sorcerers and knights who are trying to, you succeeded, you're already Undying, you can join us, and it's all false, it's all allure. So Shade of the Evening
is a bit of an hallucinogenic.
It opens your mind. It opens your mind at the same time. It's not everything you see is necessarily a vision of what it's. Some of it is sort of, I think, taking your inner anxieties and fears and desires and converting them into.
And some of it seems to be more, I said, convert in showing, kind of putting what your feelings are into some sort of interpreting it in some fashion. Like we see the dwarves and the woman who's like that's sort of like a symbol for the seven kingdoms in a way. So it puts things that are relevant to you into symbols as well.
Yeah, it seems to be the case. So given that, I mean, we can't say that everything that Euron sees. He has two distinct visions, and we're going to discuss each one separately. Not everything he sees is necessary. Possibly none of it is prophetic. It all may simply be his drug-addled brain trying to interpret what he knows and what he believes.
That wouldn't be so fun, would it? So
one never knows. But let's move on then to discussing the first of the Shade of the Evening visions. The first vision has a lot of things. Euron sees his brother Uri, who died after playing the finger dance with him, saying, worms await you, there's no drowned god, you're just... in Euron Blood-Eye, he calls him, and this is an interesting bit. Upon a throne of black skulls, there's dwarves attending him, he thinks about the bleeding star that heralded sort of the end of things. The world will be broken. A horn is blown and by Euron, and he summons dragons and krakens and sphinxes and other creatures. Euron is telling him in his dream, I am your god. Worship me, and I'll make you my priest. Euron's face sloughs off, and now Euron's bloody eye appears as black as onyx. And now, in A Feast for Crows, they've seen Euron's banner, and Euron's banner features a red eye. And many wondered if this indicated what the crow's eye, his eye under his eye patch, looked like. And it looks black, but apparently it's actually a blood red so dark, but it's black. And that's interesting, but we'll discuss why a little later. Then Euron's on the front of skulls, and there's dwarves running around, and the dwarves are really interesting as well, because it kind of connects it to Dany's vision, the House of Undying. Also a curious image of a forest burning behind Euron, and that one
was quite curious.
Obviously, you could see us in various ways. Like, forests are important to Ironborn. They are what they use to make their ships, and him destroying forests would be sort of almost antithetical to you can't build ships of burning forests. So it may be a sort of this apocalyptic vision of him just destroying everything wantonly.
Could be werewolves as well. Could be signifying something with werewolves. I think was another thing that people brought up.
Yeah. The throne changes. It's no longer, and then Euron's now sitting on the Iron Throne, a monstrous Iron Throne, and gods are impaled on it. All sorts of gods. The Seven, the Black Goat, Bacalon, the Butterfly God of Noth, the Red God, and also the Drowned God. No werewolves, people noted. No old god.
Unless the burning forest was supposed to be indicative of that, I think.
And then he kind of gets out of it, and so it's really richer stuff. I mean, the dwarves I find is most interesting because this really connects it to Dany's vision, where Dany saw this beautiful woman being sort of mauled and raped and used by these rat-nosed, rat-faced dwarves. And I think there was a few number, and basically people read this is a metaphorical the sort of the five kings just ravishing
Westeros, yeah.
Westeros. And here we're kind of running around almost chaotically in panic, I guess. And I guess the Feast for Crows. The realm is descending into a kind of messy chaos after the War of the Five Kings, and so that's the sort of thing that feels like it's actually representing truths.
Yeah, that could be one way that the Shade of the Evening, why it chooses to express itself through dwarves, I don't know, but that's and obviously I find it interesting about the bit with Euron's face coming off,
and then you have just the eye,
and that's sort of revealing something about his true nature.
Yeah, it could be. It could. I mean, that eye figures very large in Aeron's thoughts.
Yes,
actually, and there's more about this. Which I think...
And then the impaled gods. Well, I think here we're... Either this is, Euron or Aeron's mind interpreting what's happening around him, because obviously he sees that Euron has all the, priests taken prisoner, and he knows that Euron is a godless man. But... here it seems to be, if it's not just his brain, if this is some sort of vision that is actually suggesting something about what Euron wants, then he is not just not just interested in not worshipping a god, he actually wants to be a god and supplant the other gods.
Yeah, he wants to destroy all the deities and make himself a god, or obviously you have a little bit of Caligula and sort of megalomaniacal people who want to become godlike in this.
Something sort of nihilistic about it as well.
Yeah, there's definitely something nihilistic, especially like that vision of the forest burning. It's sort of he's sort of heralding the end times. It's all very creepy and scary. And
I mean, the amount of magic and such that it suggests is far beyond anything that we've really connected Euron to in the past.
I mean, we had the horn, we had the warlocks, we had his claim about Valyria, which I still think is just a claim, by the way. because he sure seems stopped short when the reader cast doubts on it.
Except, of course, in this chapter, he also shows up
In a
wearing
suit of
Valyrian armor.
Yes, which would be
Valyrian
very
steel
extremely
armor.
rare. That said,
It convinces Euron.
it convinces Euron. However, who knows? He's been raiding in the Jade Sea and the Summer Sea for a long time.
Yeah.
Who knows what he's found? If not there, I mean, we know that there are ruined Valyrian colony cities and places that he may have found it. I just don't believe him. I don't believe he's with Valyria.
No, I'm not convinced that Euron is either. So, but it's certainly he's up to something, and it's interesting that horn is at least in the vision calling not just dragons but krakens and sphinxes and
Sphinxes being creatures that are allegedly created by, but the Valyrian blood mages, and maybe still lurk. I mean, there's the whole thing about the demon road, the road passing through the peninsula of Valyria is haunted by demons, and those might be these sphinx creatures. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like if you think of a manticore, we have manticores, but George's manticores in That's Why I Fire are not the heraldic manticores or the sort of fabled mythical manticores, which are kind of lion bodies with scorpion tails. They're scorpion-like creatures with sort of human faces and sort of like beetle things. So sphinxes may not be just straight up.
No, but we've had some descriptions.
We've had depictions of Valyrian,
but nobody's
sphinx.
really described exactly what they look like.
Those are sculptures, and they may be very interpretive. If sphinxes as creatures actually exist, we don't know exactly how they look. I mean, they're supposed to, I guess, have some vaguely human aspect, but they may be quite monstrous otherwise. We don't know. So the horn's interesting as well, and this has led to a lot of theories. We'll kind of touch that at the end. I think the second vision, it's briefer, but it has the bit that I find by far the most intriguing.
Yes, the one that really got our brains into high gear.
Yeah. So let's move on to that. The second vision has longships burning. It has Euron again on the Iron Throne, but now he's become this sort of monstrous kraken on the throne.
It's kind of interesting that he sort of takes on the aspects of related to the drowned god religion, at least, and to his house, but in a very monstrous form.
And then these male and female dwarfs running around naked, copulating, devouring one another. So it's again this chaos of the realm, I think. And then there's a woman, this is the best quote I've seen. I think that seems to be the most accurate. Beside him stood a shadow in woman's form, long and tall and terrible, her hands alive with pale white fire. And this shadowy woman, when the dwarves were capering around, they laugh together at it.
Yeah.
And it's terrible. It's something that really...
It really frightens.
Yeah. Now this woman is really significant to me.
When I first heard that report, that we've seen a lot of speculation about what it could be. I mean, some have said that maybe this is, the visions from the Shade of the Evening sort of representing Dany in a way, because Euron knows about Euron's plans, that he wants to marry Dany. So, that's one idea, that is somehow her.
That one is hard to sort of refute. That's a very straightforward. If you want to use Occam's razor, it's the most straightforward. So I can't.
I just find it hard to associate Dany with the shadow and the pale fire. I can't.
Well, I mean, one of the dragons, Viserion, does breathe. But on the other hand, that's one of the other theories is actually it represents Viserion. It's almost as if the dragon horn actually works, and it's indicating that Euron will manage to get control of one of the dragons.
I suppose, and if that dragon is supposed to be female at that point in time.
Melisandre has come up as another possibility. She's tall. She has the association of fire and shadows. I just look. I mean, okay, we have her vision with Jon, which I think was discussed. Which we discussed earlier in the earlier video. about the towers and the thing, dark
Yes.
thing coming from the sea. So that kind of, if that's having to do with Euron, it's sort of
I
connecting
could
her.
see that the dark, sort of terrible thing coming from the sea is now more clearly something to do with Euron. I could definitely see that.
But whether this means that Melisandre and Euron are going to have some direct interaction, and that she's gonna, I can't imagine her kind of joining his side. I can't see that. So I think.
No, he has not exactly a fan of Valor, is he?
No, I don't really see that as the angle. I think someone argued that I think some people argue this could represent the Dusky Woman, or some theories have that she's much more of an. If you recall, the Dusky Woman is a tongueless woman who's essentially a sex slave that he gives to Victorian, and some people have theories that he's. One of the theories about him, and I think it's wrong here, is that he is a skin changer, and that he's skin changing into all of his tongueless people to spy. So in fact, he's there in the Dusky Woman when Victorian is talking about what he plans to do and what he knows. I don't buy that at all. But
no, we've seen how incredibly difficult it is for a skin changer to control.
Why would cutting out someone's tongue be sufficient to?
Yeah, we've seen that unless they are, as Hodor, mentally incapacitated.
I don't buy that at all.
No. Which leaves us with our favorite theory.
Yeah. Okay. Now this one, this one is a reach in a lot of ways. It feels like you have to go quite far.
It popped straight into my head.
Well, I mean, it came up almost immediately in my head as well. But it feels, if you look at it in terms of simplicity and directness, it's not direct at all. It's putting together a lot of pieces, and it feels a bit crackpot. And I think it all rests on that woman, really. I mean,
it also rests on his eye.
Well, yes, but the woman is the thing that kind of launched the speculation, because I was thinking, a shadowy woman, pale white fire. So okay, let's consider Euron.
What I will say is that when I told you about it, it wasn't actually so much the tall kind of got me in sort of a woman sort of standing behind the throne kind of thing. That is the implication of that.
But she was beside him, though.
Well, yes, but it's still sort of supportive. He's on the throne, she's beside him. It's kind of a supportive role, sort of controlling, guiding kind of thing. And it just popped into my head that there was one such occasion in the history of Westeros, which seemed to fit, and I didn't even think at that point of the pale fire or anything.
Well, the pale fire is a bit of a difficult, because that even that kind of sits on. First, we have to assume that this is an actual vision of something. This is a prophetic vision of something that actually will happen, or is actually a part of the story.
Well, it doesn't have to be a prophecy, but it can be indicative of what's going on with Euron, and the fact also the fact that it's represented as the shadow of a woman, if that quote is accurate.
It's a shadow in woman's form.
A shadow in woman's form. That suggests that it is somebody who's not necessarily there physically, yet with Euron. Yeah. That is how I would read it.
Yeah, the pale white fire, though, is... I mean, okay. Let's talk about her first.
Yeah.
The idea is obviously this case of the Corpse Queen from the story of the Night's King. The Night's King, the 13th Lord Commander, saw this beautiful pale woman of blue eyes and chased after her and lay with her, and after that declared herself Night's King. But she was this Corpse Queen, but she was a female other, or a creation of the others, created or directed or intending to seduce him and take over the wall and the watch that way. Yeah. And it took a big thing to deal with it. Now, this is all legend. 13th Lord Commander is way back in the past. We don't know how true it is. But, the association...
But the Knight's Fort is abandoned.
Is it? Well, it was abandoned much later. It was abandoned because of the fact that they couldn't support having it. So that has nothing to do with that. But it does... I mean, the Knight's Fort has the most magical gate of them all, with a black gate. It was the first. It was significant. So that's the legend anyways. And this Corpse Queen, could she exist, or could this idea of her exist? Could it be that Euron's real goal is not Daenerys, that he has in his head, maybe he's conflated with Daenerys, maybe it's this notion of this beautiful, terrible, shadowy queen. I mean, shadows. I mean, we have Melisandre claiming they were born of fire, but they're also darkness.
They're the children of fire.
Yeah, but the darkness is associated with shadow as well. I mean, that's the whole thing where we feel. I mean, no other Red Priest talks about shadow magic. Really, I've always wondered if her, particularly being from Ashai, where we are shadow binders, has led to an unorthodox view,
merging of the two ideas, sort of.
So you have that, and you've got this pale white fire. Well, if you look at John Picassio's 2012 Song of Ice and Fire calendar, his depiction of the others, which George has pointed other artists to, has this sort of nimbus, this pale, fiery nimbus around their heads. It's a pale blue, but it's this nimbus, and obviously
there's like a glow.
It's a glow around a fiery glow around them, and it's interesting in that, again, George has pointed other artists to it as one of the best depictions, and with the calendars he had some input discussing what he'd like to see, some ideas for concepts. He would remark on things if something looked really off. On the other hand, he does give them a lot of artistic license. I mean, this nimbus is never described.
We could also bring in here the idea that we think that it is true, what the show depicted of the others being created by the children. We didn't necessarily have the idea beforehand that they used dragon glass, but if the others were indeed created via frozen fire,
it has, I guess, if you want to,
what color would frozen fire have?
Yeah, that's a thought. I don't know.
No, I'm just saying that there are other things that you can bring in here too.
With the fire aspect, yeah, sure. So how do we get from the Corpse Queen to Euron exactly? And let's move to a separate segment discussing Euron and what we know of him now from previous chapters, from this chapter, and try and start rolling it all together to kind of create this cohesive theory.
So, what do we know about Euron from previous books and such? Well, he's a fairly elusive figure, but there's been some interesting points made, and one that really much wasn't made of at all.
There were some people who did make theories of it, but it
kind of, there was nothing to hang it onto, sort of. There was nothing to, and now we kind of have something to hang it onto, because at one point in A Feast for Crows, I believe it is.
He's talking to Victarion,
He's talking to Victarion, and he tells him that when he was a child, he thought he could fly, but then the Maester told him that he couldn't, and now he's wondering if they were wrong, perhaps. And that's an interesting phrasing, because, who else has been talking about flying? And
Bran. Bran had his dream of the three-eyed crow. He was being told you had to fly, you had to open your third eye. I think he had the conversation with the Maester, or with Old Nan, and I think Old Nan's the one who tells all crows are liars, and I think Lewin tells him you can't fly, and
it's funny how he's Euron Crow's Eye too.
Yeah, well, Crow's Eye, that eye that he wears, he has behind his eye patch in the books. In A Feast for Crows, we see that banner. That banner had the red eye, and as I said, and now it's quite clear that it is in fact this blood red eye with blood red that's so dark it looks black. And it was those pieces suddenly reminded me of, well, we have him saying he dreamt of flying. We have that red eye, just one. His other eye, his smiling eye, is fine. But we have this thing in A Dance of Dragons where we're talking about the children of the forest and the green seers, and the green seers among the children were born with red eyes or with moss green eyes. And what that indicated that their lives would be shorter, that they would be weaker, but then once they bond with the trees, their lives would be extended, and they would be green seers. We've got Bloodraven, the last green seer. He's an albino with red eyes. We have this ghost of High Heart wandering around, this dwarf albino woman. We're told Jenny of Oldstones claimed she was actually a child of the forest, red-eyed. Jojen, curiously enough, I mean, he's not a green seer. He can't skin change. but he dreams. His dreams are green.
Yeah.
He has these moss green eyes. So this eye thing. So now we have this additional character of these red eyes, or red eye, anyways. And we haven't talked about dreaming. It's sort of like, what if he was a dreamer? What if he really could dream?
And then we go back to the idea that we see early on from the vision from Bran, or where he's dreaming and he flies towards the heart of winter and he sees the bodies of other dreamers impaled upon the defenses of the others.
These icy spears.
Spears. So was Euron a dreamer? Could he have been next in line even to be?
I wouldn't go that far, but I mean, Jojen was a dreamer.
Yeah, no, he's not necessarily. But did he, get lured away towards the heart of winter as well? And
did he see things he shouldn't have seen? Did he get captured?
Did he not get away?
Injured and survived? Has this led to making him what he is? But this encounter it's all super speculative. I keep wanting to, I feel.
Well, he has a red eye and he talked about flying.
Yes, there's at least something to go on.
Now, why he only has one red eye?
It could mean there's something wrong with him.
It could be that there's something.
It would be worth knowing, for example, that red eye developed. Was he born with it, or is it something that developed? Did he have an illness one day that almost killed him, which we're told is something that happens? Jojen, I believe, was very ill, and after that he started dreaming.
Yeah.
Could that have happened to him? And now we also learn he was monstrously cruel from an early age. He reveals he's killed 3 brothers. He killed the one who was he suffocated the one who was dying
from
Grayscale, and little Robin Greyjoy, the one who was Lackwit, slow-witted. He murdered him as well.
And then Balin, of course.
And then he admits Balin.
But not by his hand.
Not by his hand, absolutely. He says that he had a hand in it, but he didn't do it personally.
Yeah.
And he also confirms here that that terrible image of Euron for Fraser Crowes of the screaming hinge represents Euron coming to his bedroom at night when he was a child and raping him, or raping Euron. He raped both of the brothers.
Apparently, because he asks him, if he was wondering whether, were you hoping I would pass you over or that I'd pick you? So he was alternating between. So yeah, something
was wrong.
Was clearly very twisted in him from an early age. But was this? It's not like the Ironborn and the Greyjoys are the most well-adjusted people around, so that one of them would come out. As if we look at the world of Ice and Fire, we've got plenty of Ironborn who are incredibly cruel, and elsewhere in Westeros too. So you don't have to be magically damaged to be like that. On the other hand, this obsession with killing off other gods.
Yeah, fighting these priests, killing off gods, making people worship him. Religion is very important in the setting.
Was the Night King trying to set himself up as a...
he was setting himself
not as a god,
as a king, as a to rule.
Because what I kind of started wondering then is the Corpse Queen, if she wasn't actually... Maybe the legend has put her in there because of something about the others, but... Is it possible that he could have been a dreamer as well, who, again, got entrapped somehow by the others? And then that this shadow in the form of a woman is not necessarily going to be a physical woman that appears in the presence of these people, but that they are somehow being controlled, manipulated by an agent of the others, or, the great other, or what. It's could we even be seeing here that Euron is the enemy now that Melisandre, she talks about the ancient enemy, but what if the ancient enemy is in fact this figure, the shadowy woman? I don't know. No. It starts going a little too far for me to kind of go that far, because it feels like it's really enough. Far out there, but I don't know. There's so much you can speculate on this.
To me, I'd see it in a different way, which is we have Bloodraven as the last Green Seer, and we have Bran being groomed and prepared to kind of take over, I guess. They've been waiting for him. He's important. What says that the others didn't wait for somebody, but they aren't creating their own sort of agent. Unwitting, perhaps. He doesn't necessarily know that he's their agent.
And then that gets interesting also if we think about the, what if this whole Shade of the Evening, the tree that it's being made from, somehow has a connection to, or is the opposite of werewoods, or something similar to werewoods that gives similar access, just in very different imagery.
Yeah. Because that was Breeze wandering by. Nice going to lie down.
Drive-by boxer.
Yeah.
Happens around here.
I don't know. To me, the thing that came to my head is, because there's one other bit that I think I've seen no one ever really speculate about, other than that whole, the tongueless people or people that he wargs into, or skin changes into. Skin changes into. I hate when I snip into that one, because it's so... Skin changes into. He doesn't... And the thing that came to mind, imagine as a dreamer, as a young boy, he is caught by the others, he sees the others,
his souls,
his vision, he's seeing it, he's seeing it all, and what he sees includes things like the whites, and the whites are these undead, silent servants of the others. And what if in his corruption, his being damaged, all of this is sort of, he has in his head this sort of this remnant of this idea of these silent servants, and he's making his own, in sort of this poor imitation of the others. And there's something about the idea really caught my attention, because it's something that he never explains, and it's never really discussed.
Yeah, why the mutes and
to me, if that bit is actually the bit that kind of makes me feel like maybe we're on the right track, because no one's really thought about it that way. And it's like, it would make sense if he was a dreamer who had been caught, or who saw what they did and had warped him, it damaged him, he's been controlled. If he's trying to emulate what they do and destroying all these gods, it's a way of trying to destroy humanity, which is, I think, what the others are trying to do, for reasons that are more complex than this. We're mustache twirling villains want to destroy everything, but
it's still their ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Well, I think that putting it that way makes me think more in the direction of that Euron, maybe that he isn't being directly controlled.
No, I don't think he's necessarily...
I think that, what if he saw things? What if that made a real impression on him? What if somehow he's trying to... Because remember, he probably lost the ability to be a dreamer.
Probably. For a reason he's drinking some Shade of the Evening.
Yes, exactly. He's drinking Shade of the Evening to try and recapture the visions. He's making his own whites. He's killing the gods. Is he trying to sort of somehow appease and impress the others with what he saw? Was there a woman there that somehow made an impression on him? He's somehow trying to do what he thinks that she wants him to do.
I think, to what level is he conscious?
He's sacrificing these gods in a...
It depends on to what level he's very conscious of doing it, or to what level this is sort of subconscious. I don't know, but
I do think that the Shade of the Evening is about trying to recapture something that he lost.
Maybe so, but it's all very intriguing. Now, the other thing that makes me start to think that there may be something to this is simply the fact that we're coming into book 6, and this is quite the curveball that he's thrown us with this Euron chapter, and what we're learning about Euron here. This is quite the curveball. In a lot of ways. It suggests that the magic aspect is growing even bigger than we expected, but there's going to be something. Some people are expecting a sort of magical apocalypse in Old Town. I mean, we have the high we have the High Towers allegedly working spells in the High Tower.
I think that with Melisandre's vision,
I just think it depends on that vision. Her vision is a place I see of multiple towers. And we don't quite know. I mean, the High Tower is defined. I mean, there's all the towers on the walls and so on. But
unless the vision is somehow showing a tall tower as like
I wouldn't buy it.
But the idea that Euron is going to cause some sort of magical cataclysm or call up something from
the depths. There's rumors of giant krakens. Although I think those are mostly garbled reports of Greyjoy ships and Iron Isle ships. But there's something. I mean, there's rumors of the horns.
There have been krakens in the world. I'm quite sure about that.
There are krakens in the world. I mean, krakens as gigantic squids, basically. It's fascinating, and it
sea dragons.
But the bit I was saying that I think actually connects this is we're in book 6, and so far Daenerys' story has not connected in any meaningful way to the others.
No.
What if Euron is presenting a bridge into that? If he is this sort of messed up abomination of a man because of his contact with the others, and he's clearly headed in a direction that, I mean, with Victarion on the way there, but he may come into confrontation with Daenerys, and that may be the first glimpse for her of what the others are, what they're like. It's about time, I think, there's hints, of course, in her chapters before, her dream of flying a dragon and burning armies of ice and so on.
So far, we've kind of sort of, loosely trying to map out what's going to happen when she comes to Westeros. Well, there will be fighting in the south, and at some point she's going to have to go north and meet whatever armies when the others are coming down. But maybe, it's going to be more about Euron is going to start something that is related to what the others are doing already, in the south, or even is he going to go after, Victarion? We don't know that yet, or whether he's just going to wait for Victarion and Dany to return to Westeros, wherever he has decided to establish himself. But no, it would bring that conflict much more to the forefront.
Yeah, it would bring it more. I mean, to me, in terms of story structure and sort of the story, it feels like, given how big this seems to be, I think it has to connect to Daenerys in some way. It has to be something that she comes in conflict with, in contact with, and then it feels even more right. But it bridges the gap between the East and the North stories by having this chaotic, unwitting or witting agent of the others, or creation of the others.
Chaos certainly seems to be a good way of describing.
Yeah. Let's wrap up by discussing some other aspects of a chapter, obviously, but because the visions are really central for what we took out of it. But there are some other things that I think are worth discussing before we wrap this up. We meet Thalia Flowers again, and this is the from Oakenshield, the
the bastard daughter of the Lord.
Lord Hewitt, who became his sort of salt wife, lover, is the one who, he gave all the luxuries of her half sisters and she's the one who suggested, they should be serving them naked. So now she's pregnant. She's starting to show, and she's
kind of like an evil Cinderella, sort of.
Or she seems she's
a little bit of a vindictive Cinderella.
Yeah, vindictive. But I mean, she comes to Euron and she feeds him, and she's kind of nice to him. And Euron loves me, and I'm going to be a salt wife, and
I'm going to be best friends with Dany.
And we're going to be as close as sisters, Daenerys and I. And he's promised that my son will go ahead of all his other bastard sons, and Euron's trying to tell her, don't run away, get away. He's which is an interesting sympathy from him. It's just he knows what's coming, and then when we see her again, her tongue has been cut out, and she's being tied up on the bow of Sion's,
on the prow.
On the prow. Alongside Euron. Yeah, and of course, yes, her son is ahead of, because she's in the front of her pregnant belly. Horrifying thing.
And he's basically Euron is tying all the priests and the warlocks to the prows of the ships before they are going into battle.
Yeah, we're going to go off. We're left burning the castle on not the arbor. It's an isle of the arbor, sort of one of the islets around it. We don't get the name. And he's leading the ships off to battle. The Red Wine Fleet is coming.
Tyrol fleet, I think, is mentioned as well.
There's not a real Tyrol fleet, but Tyrol army maybe. But it's the Red Wine fleet is the main concern, making it slow way around Dorne to come at them. So there's potential for this big battle. So people are wondering, is he going to use these? Is going to cut their throats to do a big blood sacrifice? Is it call it monsters and krakens from the sea? Who knows?
Yeah, at this point, I think anything goes is kind of, we really don't know, because this was such a huge surprise that I would not be surprised to see giant krakens called up from the sea at this point.
Another thing Euron reveals is the Shield Islands. The big thing they did first was capture the Shield Islands, and he says to Euron, he didn't care about them. It was a victory for him, and that looked good. Yeah. They gave loot and such to men, and he looked really great for capturing them. But then he handed it off, and he used them to peel away some of Victarion's strongest supporters.
And he always gives away loot. It's noted as well that he
keeps almost nothing for himself.
He keeps almost nothing for himself. He's
extremely open-handed. Yeah. He doesn't care about the wealth,
worldly goods.
It's all a means to an end for him, I think.
Yeah.
So, and then he says, and then those guys, when they lose the Shield Islands, well, they're the ones who lost it, not me. Yeah. So he doesn't care.
He's very clever in that way.
So is this the last of Euron we're going to see? Is he going to survive this? I mean,
George usually doesn't kill people like that.
I think he'll probably witness. Well, there's probably going to be one more chapter witnessing whatever happens, I think.
Yeah.
The last we have Euron is next to Thalia. He licks his lip and he tastes salt. Yeah. And something, the drowned god is with him. I think people are missing this. This is his tears. Yeah. He's weeping and he's tasting the salt on his lips. So who knows? Maybe even that indicates that the drowned god is with him. I mean, I don't believe any of these gods actually exist. Of course, I don't believe a setting actually has gods that are real.
Euron certainly does.
But they they believe something. But so it's a fascinating chapter.
It is.
It's fascinating. It's very dark. It's very ugly, and it has some really big implications. And it feels like this is stuff that George has intended as part of this. I mean, when he did at the end of Clash of Kings, or early in the Clash of Kings, he stopped work and he did a 6-book plan, and it's now expanded to 7. But I mean, it's pretty close now to having a very solid idea of where the story's going, and I'm pretty sure at that point is when he had this thing of Euron.
Yeah, most likely. It seems significant enough that I don't think that it has been introduced at a later stage.
I feel, look, if you look at it, okay, we have that early outline, which shouldn't have been got out, but it did. Yeah. Where George's concept for the first 3 books, and he mainly talks about the first book, but the initial trilogy didn't seem to have a lot of room for it. Makes no mention really of the Iron Isles. It seemed like
Dorne either.
Yeah. These are elements that may have been with the 6-book plan, which guided Akasha Kings and Storm of Swords. That's where these things got fleshed out. It's possible that this has become a central aspect of the sort of 6-7 book series that wasn't initially there, but now that it's here, it's actually very important.
Yeah,
and it's sort of it's why it's niggling at me that maybe we're on something of the right track. But what Euron is doing is connected in some fashion to the others, and that it's going to act as a bridge between these 2 continents.
And also the fact that maybe it serves a point to have a human face to it, in a sense.
I don't want to go too far from that, because
but in the sense that otherwise it's difficult to bring the conflict into play other than as a great battle, because Bran can have his interactions through visions, but most everyone else will only meet the others and the whites in final confrontations on the battlefield.
1 second. You have a little thing here. I don't know where this came from. There you go.
Thank you. But anyway, I think most people will only meet them in that final confrontation on a battlefield. Yeah. Most likely, there's little room for there to be a person-to-person interaction regarding the others.
Yeah.
So maybe not necessarily putting a human face on the conflict as such, but having one aspect of the conflict that can be more easily interacted with.
True, especially as we speculated. I mean, we're in our video about the others. It's where George says, "Yeah, I don't think they have a culture. I mean, they seem to have a language, but they're not. They don't have a culture. Like, what?
Yeah.
Are they? I mean,
And how, like, can people,
really
interact with them in any way, or is
way,
it in that way maybe a sort of agent or person who's influenced by them was needed to bring their agenda into the middle of the action without it having to be the whole army of whites and others.
Yeah, so a lot to think about anyways, I have to say, and I think if that shadow is not a vision of a corpse queen of the others influencing Euron in some fashion, I would have to say it's probably just straightforward. This is Aeron's vision of Daenerys' rule, that Euron's plan is to have this. But I just find a lot of it just makes me say, like, I'm onto something, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we could very well be wrong, but it just feels big enough that maybe just once being a bit crackpot, being a bit tinfoily is not off.
I don't think it's that crackpotty. It's like Ashardine is queefy.
Oh yeah, some people thought it was queefy, but I said there's no way because queefy is Ashardine.
Yeah, no, exactly. So that doesn't work out at all.
All right, so we're gonna leave it at that. Next video, I guess, will be you reviewing whatever episode comes next, and after that, we'll see what we come up with to discuss for Ice and Fire. We're now healthy, more or less.
More or less, I've managed to cough off one of my ribs, but as long as I don't have to do any acrobatics, I'll be fine.
So until then,
bye.